Have you ever noticed how some people don't need to raise their voice, don't need to argue, don't need to explain themselves, and yet the entire atmosphere bends around them? They don't beg for attention, they don't force respect, and they don't waste their energy trying to convince anyone. They simply withdraw. They go silent, and suddenly the energy shifts. It's unsettling, isn't it? When someone refuses to play the game of reaction, when they stop feeding the cycle of constant availability, the balance of power changes. Questions arise. Who are they really? Why are they no longer predictable? What happens when their absence speaks louder than their presence ever did? This is not weakness. This is not passivity. This is power in its rawest form. And this is exactly what Carl Jung understood about the human psyche, that our greatest strength does not always come from reaction, but from restraint. Today we begin a journey into Jung's world of psychic energy, of masks and projections, of individuation and silence. But be careful. Once you understand what I'm about to share, you will never look at your relationships, your reactions, or your own energy in the same way again. The trap of constant availability. From childhood, most of us are taught the same lesson. Be agreeable, be available, respond quickly, keep everyone happy. If someone calls, you pick up. If someone asks, you say yes. If someone criticizes, you defend yourself immediately. Somewhere deep inside, we were conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to how accessible we are. But here's the truth that no one tells you. Constant availability is not a virtue. It is a prison. Think about it. What happens when water is everywhere? People don't value it. But when water is scarce, when it is protected, it becomes sacred. The same applies to you. The more you allow yourself to be always accessible, always ready to respond, the less others value your presence. And the cost of this is enormous. Because each forced yes, each unnecessary explanation, each impulsive reaction drains a little piece of your psychic energy. Jung saw the psyche not as a machine, but as an energy system. Every thought, every word, every action consumes energy. The question is not whether you will spend it. The question is where. Do you invest it in your growth, your peace, your creativity, or do you squander it on people who press your emotional buttons just to see you dance? You already know the answer. That tiredness you feel at the end of the day, that quiet frustration, that emptiness, you can't quite explain. It doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from being too available, too predictable, too reactive. You are bleeding out psychic energy, piece by piece, and the world around you has learned to feed on it. The economy of psychic energy. Carl Jung said something profound. That which we resist persists. Every time you resist a provocation by reacting emotionally, you feed it. Every time you defend yourself against a petty criticism, you give it power. Every time you rush to respond to a message you didn't want to answer, you sacrifice your peace. Psychic energy is like money. If you don't guard it, it will be spent, and not always on things that matter. But unlike money, your psychic energy is finite in a way far more intimate. Once it is wasted, you can't simply earn it back with overtime. It must be regenerated through silence, solitude, and conscious withdrawal. People who are emotionally exhausted are not weak. They are simply misdirected. They pour their energy into bottomless wells. Arguments that never end, relationships that drain, obligations that suffocate. And once empty, they become vulnerable. Predators of all kinds, manipulators, narcissists, energy vampires, can sense this exhaustion. They see that you react quickly, that you don't guard your center, that you are desperate to explain yourself. And they take advantage. They don't need to control you directly. They only need to press the buttons you've left exposed. Do you see the danger? Your very availability becomes the tool of your manipulation, projections, and the puppet strings. Jung introduced the concept of projection, the unconscious mechanism where we see in others what we cannot acknowledge in ourselves. But projections work both ways. When others look at you, they may not see you at all. They see the role you've been willing to play, the rescuer, the listener, the one who always answers, always comforts, always forgives. You have become a canvas for their projections, that friend who only calls when they're in crisis, that partner who leans on you but never truly stands beside you, that colleague who praises you only when you are useful. None of this is by chance. They are not relating to your essence. They are relating to the mask you wear, the persona that Jung warned us about. And why do you agree to wear it? Because you fear rejection, because you believe love is earned through sacrifice, because you confuse constant giving with being valued. But here's the cruel irony. The more available you are, the less you are valued. Predictability breeds exploitation. What is always there becomes invisible, and the strings tighten. Your worth becomes tied to your reactions. You become a puppet, dancing not to your own rhythm, but to the pulls of others' needs, insecurities, and shadows. The moment of withdrawal. But imagine this. One day you stop dancing. You don't explain, you don't argue, you don't rush to reply, you don't chase after anyone, you simply withdraw. The silence is deafening. For the first time, those around you are forced to confront themselves. Your unavailability removes the mask, the projections crumble, and the people who depended on your predictability begin to panic. Why? Because your silence reveals their noise. Your withdrawal exposes their dependence. Your refusal to play leaves them standing alone on a stage where you were always the supporting actor. Some will call you cold. Others will accuse you of changing. But the truth is, you are finally showing them who you really are, and not everyone can handle that. This is the first step toward what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, undivided. It begins not with an explosion, but with a quiet retreat, with the courage to stop being endlessly available. Silence as sovereignty. We live in a world addicted to noise, opinions shouted across screens, arguments fought in comment sections, constant notifications demanding immediate replies. The modern person is trained to react quickly, loudly, impulsively. But Jung understood something deeper. True power is not in reaction. It is in choosing not to react. Silence is not weakness. It is not absence. It is amplified presence. It is the refusal to be dragged into battles unworthy of your energy. It is the discipline of guarding your psychic field. When you do not answer, you change the rules of the game. When you do not defend yourself against every criticism, you reveal how little those words weigh against your truth. When you do not rush to explain, you show that you owe nothing to anyone but yourself. Silence makes people uncomfortable. Why? Because in your silence, they are forced to hear themselves. They are forced to face the shadows they once projected onto you. And not everyone is prepared for that. But here is the paradox. The very silence that disturbs others is the silence that heals you. It is in silence that you regenerate psychic energy. It is in solitude that you rediscover your voice. It is in withdrawal that you reconnect with your essence. Breaking the chains of projection. Let's return to projections. Jung taught that we don't see people as they are. We see them as we are. We throw our shadows, our wounds, our hidden desires onto others. And when you have been overly available, you've been the perfect canvas. Others have painted their fears and expectations onto you, and you've carried them as if they were your own. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself apologizing for things you didn't even do? How often have you felt guilty simply because someone else was uncomfortable? How often have you played the rescuer, the listener, the always reliable presence? Even when it destroyed you inside? That guilt is not yours. It is projected onto you. But the moment you withdraw, the projection collapses. And this collapse terrifies people. Why? Because now they can no longer hide behind you. They are forced to face the mirror of their own emptiness. They must see the wounds they've avoided by leaning on your endless availability. Some will lash out, some will criticize, some will accuse you of being selfish, arrogant, distant. But their reaction reveals more about them than about you. Their anger is proof that you were never seen as a person. You were seen as a function. And now that the function is gone, their illusion shatters. Withdrawal is not cruelty. It is truth. And truth is often uncomfortable. The sacred silence. Silence is a language, not the silence of fear, but the silence of sovereignty. Jung once said that individuation requires stepping away from the collective. Why? Because as long as you are immersed in the noise of others' expectations, you cannot hear your own voice. Silence is that stepping away. It is sacred isolation. Not running from the world, but returning to yourself. And this silence has a cost. You will be misunderstood. You will lose people. You will be accused of being distant. But consider this. If silence is enough to end a relationship, was it ever real? If your absence is unbearable, perhaps your presence was never valued. Silence filters. It reveals who seeks your essence and who only wanted your energy. It separates the ones who are drawn to your soul from the ones who only wanted your attention. When you master silence, you no longer waste energy on battles that do not matter. You no longer feel compelled to explain yourself to those determined to misunderstand you. You no longer give away fragments of your peace in exchange for crumbs of validation. This is the beginning of sovereignty, individuation, becoming whole. At the heart of Jung's psychology lies the idea of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Not the mask, not the role, not the projection, the self. But individuation cannot happen while you are enslaved to others' expectations. It cannot happen while you are constantly available, constantly reactive, constantly shaped by external forces. Individuation requires separation. It requires silence. It requires the courage to walk alone for a time, to shed the masks, to confront your own shadow. And this is terrifying, because once the masks fall, you must meet yourself, not the persona you crafted for acceptance, not the puppet dancing on emotional strings, but the raw, unfiltered you, with all your flaws, wounds, and potential. Yet, it is only here, in this sacred confrontation, that wholeness is born. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." To individuate is to enter that darkness, to face your projections, to reclaim the energy you once gave away. And when you emerge, you are no longer dependent on external approval. You are no longer a slave to reaction. You are whole, the loneliness of the strong. Let's be honest, this path is not easy. When you stop being endlessly available, when you begin to withdraw, you will feel lonely. The silence will feel heavy at first. The accusations will sting. The loss of old patterns will feel like grief. But this loneliness is not emptiness. It is cleansing. It is the solitude of the strong, the solitude of one who no longer betrays themselves to keep others close. In this solitude, clarity enters, peace enters, strength enters. You begin to realize that what you thought was connection was often dependency. What you thought was love was often manipulation. What you thought was friendship was often convenience. And as the illusions fall away, something new is born, self-respect. You will lose people, yes, but you will find yourself. You will be misunderstood, yes, but you will begin to be respected, even feared, in a way you never were before. Because when you are no longer available for everything, you become valuable for the few things that truly matter. Rebirth from the silence. This is the paradox of withdrawal. By stepping away, you return to yourself. By going silent, you hear your own voice. By saying no, you affirm the deepest yes, the yes to your own soul. This is rebirth. The shedding of the old self, the collapsing of the projections, the release of the puppet strings. When you reach this stage, something profound happens. You are no longer reactive. You are creative. You no longer let the world shape you. You shape your reality from within. And people notice. Your presence carries a different weight. You no longer need to prove, explain, or justify. Your silence speaks. Your absence teaches. Your energy commands respect. This is the fruit of individuation. This is the freedom Jung spoke of. The final challenge. But here is the question you must face. Are you ready to pay the price? Because freedom has a cost. To withdraw is to disappoint. To go silent is to provoke. To choose yourself is to lose those who only wanted your function. Are you willing to be misunderstood? Are you willing to be rejected? Are you willing to be hated for the crime of protecting your energy? Most people are not. They return to the prison of availability. They keep dancing to the pulls of others' strings. They keep giving away their peace for scraps of validation. But maybe you are different. Maybe you are ready. Because if you are, then the moment you stop being always available is the moment you become unforgettable. So now I ask you directly, how much longer will you let others control you through your reactions? How much longer will you play the role of the endlessly available? How much longer will you spend your precious energy on what does not nourish you? The choice is yours. If this message resonates, if you feel that call within you, write it in the comments. I choose my peace. Because individuation begins with a single decision. The decision to stop betraying yourself, to withdraw, to go silent, to become sovereign. Carl Jung showed us that wholeness is not found in pleasing others. It is found in confronting ourselves. And when you finally dare to walk that path, you will discover something unshakable, that true freedom is not being loved by everyone, but being whole within yourself. So, will you continue to be controlled by the emotions of others? Or will you cut the strings, embrace the silence, and be reborn? The world is waiting for your answer.